You're watching our Operation Education Christmas Day special. Throughout the past year, Operation Education has been covering the stories that matter to you. We're talking about test scores, school safety, district transparency, and statewide policy and law. These topics impact our area's students, schools, and communities. Whether you have children or not, what happens to and in our area schools impacts all of us. Today, we're taking a look back at the most consequential topic of the year, literacy. At the state level, in both Indiana and Michigan, historic investments in literacy have been taking place. In Indiana, this year was the first year where the stakes were high. That's because third grade students would be held back if they didn't pass the state's reading assessment. As Operation Education explained in February, the iRead retention law loomed as schools prepared to administer the test.
Everyone here is ready for the iRead.
I feel like kids are doing the best that they can possibly do. We've done the best that we can do. Parents are coming alongside of us and really helping their kids.
This is third grade at Oxbow Elementary School. Students have been preparing to take the iRead test.
So we do tell parents, the things that you can do the night before. You make sure they get a good night's sleep. Talk them up.
Teacher Deb Salee is not new to the classroom, but this is the first time in a long time where there's added pressure to pass the reading assessment.
And so we spend the year really working on reading skills. We don't want to focus too much on the test, even though it's so important. And so we figure that if we can get kids to be readers for life and confident in their reading, they're going to pass the test.
Did you know that the moon orbits around Earth?
Next door, teacher Taylor Framiff is working with her students.
How are you preparing kids to take that test? And what do you foresee as being the results this year?
I foresee, because we've been able to target such a small group, that we'll have even more kids passing this year.
That's the hope here at Concord Community Schools and around the state.
But iRead is really written towards an end of the year end of second grade, beginning of third grade reading level.
Last year, the Indiana General Assembly passed legislation aimed at making sure students had mastered foundational reading skills by the end of third grade. Among other changes, Senate Enrolled Act 1 will require third graders who don't pass the iRead to be held back.
We've had an iRead retention rule on the books for a long time, but there's been a tremendous amount of exemptions and cause for being able to continue for students to move on, and a lot of those are eliminated, so that's the change.
Concord Superintendent Dan Funston says now third grade students who don't pass the iRead will only get a good cause exemption in very specific cases, meaning the law is pretty strict.
We hope that we get almost all of them through. We hope we get all of them through. But we know that there will be some that will need that extra year support.
Teachers and schools across the state have been trying to reach kids and families to provide extra support and communication.
I do feel like it has pulled parents in more and made parents more involved, because the law is written scary. It is scary thinking about students being retained.
Operation Education was the first to tell you about the iRead results when they were released in August. The data showed an unprecedented increase in the number of third graders who passed. Look, 87% of third graders in the state passed this year. That is a nearly 5% increase, and the largest since the assessment began in 2013. Several local school districts also saw major increases. The IDOE data shows a nearly 9-point increase in iRead proficiency in South Bend schools, a 10-point increase in Mishawaka, and a 16-point increase in Elkhart. The iRead results showed major success at South Bend's Success Academy at the Boys and Girls Club. The South Bend Charter School saw a nearly 40% increase in its iRead data in 2025 compared to 2024, from just about 33% passing in 2024 to 70% passing this year. It was one of the biggest year-over-year improvements in the state.
Figuring out exactly where that gap is, it's like figuring out in the cake what ingredient is missing. So I have all of these parts, but what part does this, what did I forget? And putting it in.
Now, what that iRead data also showed is that teaching kids to read starts before elementary school. As Operation Education showed you in September, Concord Community Schools is offering its Mini Minutemen program. In this classroom,
I'm right here.
there are future doctors, future engineers, and maybe future teachers.
What is this letter? L?
But for now, these small students are in the big business of playtime during pre-K.
So they have this play-based curriculum that they're doing where they're learning while they're playing, and that's really what preschool is.
We need butter.
This is the Mini Minutemen program at Concord's Eastside Elementary School.
So their day mimics a slower paced kindergarten day.
And right now, these students are enjoying an organized playtime.
And so they're doing a lot of like that social talking and playing and acting out together. So they're meeting that goal there as far as their social needs, their emotional needs.
It's not all play and no work, but the work here looks like play.
Aside from that, they also have academic pieces.
Because while this is preschool, it mirrors elementary school.
And so they're learning about just how do you do school.
And that is the most important feature of preschool.
I think it'll be a much easier transition between preschool and kindergarten.
But here, the preschool classroom incorporates playtime and builds on a love of learning.
It is a magical time of their lives when they are getting this independence. You're seeing them just start to be their own individual human being.
Violet, what about you? Do you know how to count to 10?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That is certainly true for Violet and Vera.
Wait, I got a lot of squishmallows.
I figured, yes.
I got 45,000.
45,000 squishmallows?
These two independent 4-year-olds have already had a busy day of magical fun.
No, Isla was cooking for me and Vera.
Yeah, what was she cooking?
No, I was cooking with Isla.
Oh, you were cooking together.
Yeah.
What were you having as a meal over there?
Well, my baby had soup and I had steak.
And they were not shy about sharing what they've learned.
I heard that you guys were learning about an apple today.
About the skin and the flesh and the seeds and the big seeds.
Yeah? So you learned about all of that today?
Yeah, and now there's apples over there.
What are you gonna do with all those apples?
Me and Vera are gonna eat them all. And we're not going to share them.
Violet and Vera are just starting out on their school journey. And thanks to all the fun they're having in the Mini Minutemen pre-K program, they could be one step ahead when they get to kindergarten or whatever comes after that.
Way to be leaders.
MSTEP data shows a mixed picture for literacy amongst Michigan students. The MSTEP measures whether students are proficient in grade-level academic standards. Michigan students in grades 5 through 11 are doing better in ELA and math. Unfortunately, the data shows there is concern about reading scores in grades 3 and 4. School leaders throughout the state acknowledge there is improvement needed, but also caution that test scores do not paint the whole picture.
But we do know that this is how the public views us, right? These are the scores that are public. They don't see the interventionists doing the work with the kids. They don't see the behavior interventions that we have in place.
State leaders say this shows the need to continue efforts implementing research-based measures. After the break, we're talking about another of the biggest topics of the year in education, absenteeism. You're watching the Operation Education Christmas Day special. Welcome back to this Operation Education Christmas Day special. Today we're taking time to examine the top stories I've covered this year. One of the major issues facing schools is chronic absenteeism. In September, Operation Education showed you the newest data from both Indiana and Michigan. Chronically absent students are missing at least 10% of school days, or approximately 18 days in a year, for any reason. Look at the numbers. In Indiana and Michigan, the rate of chronic absenteeism is on the decline. Last school year in Michigan, just under 28% of students were chronically absent. In Indiana, it was 16%. While down, that is a lot of students who aren't showing up to school regularly. The problem is that when those students are not in class, they miss valuable information. The data shows chronically absent children are struggling in literacy, math, and college readiness. We found to address chronic absenteeism, there needs to be more of an understanding about the reasons behind it. At South Bend's Washington High School, more than 54% of students were considered chronically absent. It's also a school where school leaders say 85% of families live at or below the poverty line.
It's not the fact that they are unwilling and not wanting to come to school for the most part. It's that there are other responsibilities that happen in their households and in their families that make that more of a priority of survival and then school.
To better understand why students are missing school, Indiana has passed several laws. Indiana's truancy prevention law, passed in 2024, triggered a few key changes, including that schools must report to the prosecuting attorney if a child is a habitual truant.
And it seems to be working. Truancy is down this year.
Sierra Savannah is the new district attendance officer for South Bend schools.
Every day I'm in contact with our attendance secretaries.
She's in charge of enforcing the district's attendance policy.
There is a link to students' attendance today with their future and their future goals.
While chronic absenteeism, missing 10% of school days for any reason, excused or unexcused, is a concern nationwide, Indiana's new truancy prevention law is meant to target the students who are habitually truant. Habitually truant students are missing from school unexcused for 10 or more days, and this applies to students in kindergarten through high school.
I think number one is transportation. Sometimes it's housing insecurity, or for our older kids, the parents are already going off to work.
Savannah says last school year the truancy rate was about 50%. This year so far, it's been cut in half. She believes it's a credit to the district's attendance policy and the process laid out in the state's law.
So here's how South Bend's attendance policy works step by step, and it is similar to other school districts as well. Families receive an attendance call daily, regardless of whether the child is excused or unexcused. After 3 unexcused absences, parents receive a letter reminding them of the attendance law and how they can excuse their child's absences. At 5 unexcused absences, by law, the school attendance team has to hold an attendance conference with the parent. They come up with a truancy prevention plan. What is the general feeling from parents after these types of meetings?
Some come out encouraged, some come in like on defense, and then when they realize that we are trying to prevent them from going to the prosecutor, they soften up a little bit.
That's after 5 unexcused. The next step, 8 days of unexcused absences. Another letter goes home to parents.
And then this one kind of states what may happen if you get to the prosecution level, because the next one is 10. We have to create an affidavit.
Yes, the next step is at 10 days of unexcused absences. Remember, these aren't always in a row. They may be a day or two here and there throughout the school year, but they add up.
The schools will have to create an affidavit attesting to how many unexcused absences the child is at now. They then send it to me, I sign it, and then I send it to the prosecutor.
In St. Joseph County, that's Prosecutor Ken Cotter. His office received hundreds of affidavits last year. This is an example of the letter he then sends. It explains the law that a parent or guardian who fails to send their child to school can be charged with a misdemeanor or a felony.
That means there were 600 students from K through 5th grade who missed at least 10 days of school, unexcused. I sent out close to 600 letters.
After that, the school continues to monitor the child's absences and report to the prosecutor's office. At 15 unexcused absences, the Casey Center reaches out. They try to work with the family. If unexcused absences continue, Casey will refer the parent to the prosecutor for charges. Casey Center says it worked with 70 families last school year. 7 parents of St. Joseph County kindergarten through 5th grade students were ultimately facing charges.
Out of 600, we only had 7. That's pretty darn good.
Court documents from one of those cases shows the parent of a 5th grade student was charged after the child missed more than 80 days of school. Cotter says of the 7 people charged, all were charged with misdemeanors.
I made a decision. I could have charged them with a felony, but what was the purpose? The purpose is to get them to school. And so far, knock on wood, those families, we're not seeing absences from those kids anymore.
And that's the whole point of the law, to get kids back into the classroom.
What do you see happening after that?
We see the kid coming to school a lot. We see a lot of parent communication, which is what we were trying to promote in the beginning anyway.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Operation Education content. Our Operation Education Christmas Day special continues with a look at how schools are educating the future generation. In this story from January, we showed you how IU South Bend students are getting a realistic feel of what happens from the scene of the crime to the courtroom.
The IUSB CJ Criminal Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Merkin presiding.
If it wasn't for the classroom setting, you might just believe this is court. So the case is not real.
It's not real.
The defendant is not a real person.
Not a real defendant.
It seems real because Stacey Merkin made it that way.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you
Merkin heads up the Department of Criminal Justice here at IU South Bend. To give students a realistic look at the justice system, every year she arranges a crime scene.
And then what I do with Officer Hoff, who works at South Bend PD, she also teaches my labs with me. So we get together ahead of time and we create all the blood spatter, we break the mugs, we do everything that we need to do ahead of time for the actual crime scene. And we set it up, we come in early and set it up.
Then, while some students investigate,
but we put our fingerprints on everything, so when they're lifting, it's really ours.
Other students prepare for trial.
So I give them the evidence that comes from my criminalistics class.
Ultimately, all of that culminates inside the courtroom.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please say I do.
I do. The witness may be seated.
This fictional case is Indiana versus Sutherland. The defendant, Tracy Sutherland, played by another IU South Bend professor, is accused in the brutal murder of Anastasia Martin.
And I'm getting to prove why I think that the defendant committed the crime.
So my defense team and I, we spent hours on phone calls, meeting in person, deciding what way is the best way to, go about the trial.
The victim died from a hit to the head and also had cyanide in her blood. Investigators collected blood spatter evidence, fingerprints, and a handwritten note. All of that is presented in front of a jury and the Honorable Judge Merkin.
Just understanding what a courtroom essentially is like.
And just like in a real jury trial, 12 people will decide whether the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
How surprised are you at the verdict that the jury reaches? I'm surprised pretty much every time.
And this time,
everyone may be seated.
As the verdict was read, the classroom courtroom was quiet.
Your Honor, we find the defendant, Tracy Sutherland, not guilty on the count of first-degree murder with aggravated circumstances.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for sticking with us. We turn now to a story we first showed you in June. Brandywine High School students are uncovering new leads in local cold cases, turning what they found into a podcast.
We want to make a difference in the world. We are underestimated.
That is the Underestimated Bobcat Media Podcast.
That is completely done by the students here at Brandywine.
Bob Ruff runs the broadcasting program and teaches the class.
The investigative journalism class it's pretty unique. I don't know that anything like this exists anywhere, certainly not in the state.
So the case we're working on is Jeanette Robertson. It was up in Reed City, Michigan.
Stephanie Cruz and Chelsea Olson are part of the student team investigating the 4-decade-old murder of a young mom who was brutally murdered at work.
On January 19, 1983, at the time of her murder, Jeanette was 27 years old.
So our first step is to always gather information and understand what was going on. So what was she doing? When was she murdered? Was she murdered during the nighttime, daytime?
What they discovered through their research and consulting with an FBI profiler was that the original investigators may have missed important details.
The original investigators, they had an idea of who killed her, and they was so stuck on oh, it's a male, and it was just kind of shocking that they never looked into something else.
Based on all of these behaviors, we personally believe that the unsub that we're looking for is a young female.
They've done everything that any professional podcaster or journalist would do. In fact, everything from gathering the information, conducting the interviews, writing the scripts, recording. We had a student that put together the music, that composed the music that we use in the podcast.
Our goal with this, even if we can't solve it, is just to get more eyes on the case, get people focused on it so they know what's happening.
No one has seen or heard from him since.
Gracie McNamara is part of the team investigating a series of cases involving missing people.
Chris Temple was a high school student, around 17 years old and soon to graduate.
McNamara is hoping to shine a light on those cases for the sake of the victims and their families.
To see that the police didn't give this child the attention that he deserves was really hard.
I feel like when I listen to him, I feel like the story is like getting out.
Avery Bright and her team spent the year investigating the case of Janice Sanders and Janice Langs. They disappeared without a trace in the 70s.
Now, one huge connection in both Janice's case and Janice's case is they both went missing a little while after breaking up with Jerry and after they both moved back home with their parents.
Our whole goal was to give Jeanette a voice.
The students say they've learned a lot about investigating, a lot about journalism, and a lot about themselves.
With this class, it makes me realize that all of us have more potential than what we think, and I think that's just kind of amazing.
And they hope that along the way, they've made a difference.
And now, as we record this final episode, we feel that we can confidently say, mission accomplished.
You can see this story in its entirety and the other stories we've shared today by visiting our Operation Education page at WSBT.com. Operation Education is already investigating the education issues that impact you, your school district, and your tax dollars. In 2026, we're planning stories on the latest graduation rates and what's happening with third graders who were retained after iRead testing. Make sure to watch Operation Education every Monday and Wednesday at 6 on WSBT 22. And thanks for watching.